Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Define on TikTok Live. Today, I am going to be doing a morning journaling workshop focused on evening journaling. So we will be doing a journaling workshop today. Good morning, Angela. You guys can see the journal I'm using right now is the Tranquil Garden. And I actually added our tabs to this, the blank tabs, which are part of the Purposeful Planning sticker pack. And I do this to separate the different sections. I'm going to give us all just a few moments to settle on in. I know I have some registered for this event, so I want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to come on in. Grab your journal, grab a piece of paper, whatever is going to be best for you today. I hope you're all having a fabulous Wednesday. You're halfway through the week. Good morning, Martha. I've grabbed some pens. I have our journal. We're going to be ready to go here. Okay. Everyone get whatever you need for this for this journaling workshop, and we will slowly start to dive in. Good morning, Jenna. So I just want to start by welcoming you all here today. I'm so excited to have you on. Even though it is morning, I want to talk about evening journaling, specifically how to reflect at the end of the day in a way that lets you prepare by releasing what's happened and what we're ready to enter with tomorrow. So I want you all to grab your journal and we're going to dive in so you guys can have this format and these different prompts moving forward. I'm just going to move something on my desk. There we go, giving us a little more space. So I want to start off with the framework. I'm going to open up, I use these tabs to section my journal off. So I'm going to open up to the thoughts. I'm going to go right here. And I always start by labeling the page, whatever, with the date, the time, and in today's instance, what we're doing. So I'm just going to grab my crystal pen for this. Nothing makes me feel better than using a fun pen. So I section the journal with the Purposeful Planning tabs. And so I, for this one, have gratitude, affirmation, quotes, thoughts, ideas, and goals. I like having the different tabs on my journal because it makes me feel like this can be my end-all be-all. I like to keep this on my nightstand, and it's something I can pull whenever I'm needing some inspiration or just a place to get my ideas out in a specific spot. So we're going to just start, of course, with the way I always do, and that's going to be the date, which it is 11/19/2025. And I also write the time, so it's 11. I'm just going to write 11 a.m. And we're going to write journaling workshop. Good morning, Shauna. This will be a journaling workshop, evening edition. Okay, so again, let me just start with the framework. Because when it comes to evening reflection, specifically in a journal, I like to keep it pretty simple, but also have something that guides my reflection. So I do what I like to call the 3 R's, and it's different than what I call the 3 R's for the monthly reflection, but it's similar. This I do is called recall, reflect, and reset. So I'm going to actually grab that crystal pen again, and we're going to write those down. So the framework, just to repeat it, is recall, good morning, Lena. So 1 is going to be recall. And I'll walk you through each step as well. But to give you a brief overview, recall is where you're going to write down what happened today. The second R is reflect. And this is more specifically, what did it mean to you, which you'll understand in a moment. And the third one's going to be reset. Hey, Kelsey. So reset, this is going to be, what do you want to release before bed? Because I do want you all to keep in mind that I chose to do it in the morning so you guys can have these at night, something to come back to. And this is going to be focusing on an evening journaling session. We covered the morning session, so it's important that we take the time to do the evening. So reset, what do you want to release before bed? Okay. And the reason why I like to have this set up with the 3 R's is because it also keeps you from just brain dumping, and instead it actually helps you understand your day while still giving yourself space to rest. So let's break this down even further. Hey, Ash, we are going to talk about how we can actually journal based off of the 3 R's. So let's start with recall. And the way we're going to have this set up is I am going to give you guys the prompt, explain a little bit about what recall actually means, and then I will take a gray pen and I'll write through some example answers. So what does it mean to recall when it comes to evening journaling? Recall is simply noticing what happened today without judging it. That is the crucial part. Do not judge yourself. So you can either practice these prompts as I'm going through this with you, or you can write them down and save it for later tonight. But as you're doing this, you can also think about yourself last night and allow this to be an example moving forward. And if anything comes up throughout this, anything you would like to share, anything you would like to ask, feel free. That's what I like these sessions to be. So the first prompt I'm going to have you ask yourself is, what stood out to you today, big or small? So recall prompt 1. We're going to write this right over here. What stood out to me? I'm going to write me today, big or small? And then I always like to do separate colors, no rhyme or reason. Sometimes it's just fun to differentiate and it makes it pop a little more. So we're going to take a gray Pilot G2 pen for this. So an example of how you can answer this in a non-judgmental, not analyzing way is going to be, my morning felt surprisingly peaceful. Let's see, I stayed focused. I stayed focused. I stayed present. And enjoyed the pace of my day. Good morning, Anne Marie. And actually enjoyed the pace of my day. I want more mornings like that. You noticed your sleep pattern. Then we are going to leave it like this for the moment, and you'll see how it all connects in after we continue with recall. Because the next step in recall is the second prompt. I always leave a space in between. It just makes it easier to read, I think. What made you smile or feel grateful? Notice how we're starting off with just a little recall of the day, taking into account what happened without judgment, and it's getting us really ready for what's to come. What made you smile or feel grateful? Well, I felt grateful, or I am grateful. Let's always write this in the present tense. So yes, even though this will be something that you do at night, I want you guys to picture yourself as though you are in that moment. So you're recapping the day and you want it to be in present tense to just keep you focused on what's at hand. So I am grateful. I am grateful for the walk that I took after lunch. It grounded me and was a nice mix-up of the day. And then, good morning, Spooky. I also felt connected to my coworkers today. I wasn't rushing. And this made me feel grateful and a combination of smiling as well. You wake up to see the sunrise since you changed your sleep pattern, and you're grateful to spend time with your mom. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I also felt connected to my coworkers today. I wasn't rushing. And I focused on progress, or done is better than perfect, excuse me. Okay. And then I want to move to the third prompt when it comes to recall. And again, you guys, if anything comes up, if you're ever wondering something, don't hesitate to ask. I like this being interactive. So I always appreciate it when you guys share your answers or whatever it might be. The third prompt for the recall section is going to be what drained your energy or felt stressful. And again, taking a moment to write our answers without judging. We don't have to dive into the why just yet. So, for example, I felt overwhelmed when I checked my email later than normal. Or my email late. And it also just shifted my mood. I also had to maybe ask yourself how you felt. And so in terms of maybe you had a moment of self-doubt that kept lingering longer than you would have liked. That is such a good point. Spooky said, it's wild you can have a good day, but one little thing can change that. I want you guys to remember that note, and you'll, I think, be able to hopefully adapt that, because you'll see. I think that's such a great point that you brought up. That lingered longer than I wanted. Okay. So I want to make sure that the reason why step 1 is important is clear before moving into the next part. Taking the moment to recall is going to allow you to move forward with a deeper awareness of the basics of your day. So for the next step, before we move into reflection, I want to do something that we're going to call it micro reflection. This is going to be we're going to call it 1B, because it's not going to be the full next step, but it's a sub-step of recalling. Because once you've recalled, I want you to do a micro reflection. Okay, so step 2 will be reflect. But before that, let's take a look at what we've written so far and do a micro reflection. So we're going to call this step 1B. And this is something that I found very helpful. Instead of trying to just brain dump things and trying to overanalyze my whys here, I'm able to really stick to the facts and then take it into a different level. This is also a bridge that makes this journaling at night more meaningful. And so we're going to ask ourselves, why? Why did that moment feel good? Why did that moment feel stressful? Why did I react the way I did? Now, I do want to emphasize the fact that most people tend to skip this step, but this is also a part of where that insight comes from. This is what makes your journaling feel like you're not just writing things down for the sake of writing things down, but you get to take this as data and learn from it. So step 1B is the micro reflection, and it's where we are going to take what we just wrote and see what we can learn from it. So I want you to take what you just wrote and write a little paragraph. It can be a couple sentences as to the why behind each of these answers. Why did that feel stressful? What does that moment reveal about what I need? And was today aligned with how I want my days to feel? And I think once I write an example of this, it'll start to make more sense as to why you're doing this. But something that I wanted to come back to, because how Spooky just said it's wild that you can have a good day, but one little thing can change that. I think that that's a big insight that we can take away. That is where the micro reflection comes in. Because let's say you're looking at this and you see, well, I had a great morning, but I did check my email a little late, and that shifted my mood. So maybe I had a great morning, but then I checked my email at 11 instead of my normal right away at 9. Well, I didn't have to let this shift affect my mood as much as it did. And so I think what I'm trying to say is that when Spooky mentioned how one little thing can change everything, that is in our control. So I realized this is where the insight of what you've written so far comes in. I realized that some things will always be outside of my control. Like checking an email too late, for instance. Even though technically I can see why that would be in my control because maybe I could have just checked it before, but sometimes things do come up where I really couldn't check my email until later because I was busy in meetings and things like that. But take in mind what you can really control, okay? Like checking my email too late. Or someone saying something unexpected. What I can control is my response. That right there, that is power. That is my power. And I also want you to ask yourself focusing on this insight on what you learned today. I also learned that I'm calmer when I'm not rushing from task to task, and my work actually comes out better. My work comes out better. Okay? Is that clear so far? I want to do a quick check-in. Just make sure, see where we're all at before moving into that step 2, our official step 2 in our journaling today, which I'm just going to start on the next page. Because step 2 is reflect. And this is where we've already made a little bit of insight into our day, into what's working, but we've slowly started. We don't want to just dive right in because sometimes before bed at the end of the day, that can cause too much, sometimes reactive rather than insightful. And so now that we've warmed up, it's important to dive deeper. So reflecting is where we make sense of the day. And these are the prompts that I like to use that help us learn from the day instead of just replaying it, because that's often what happens. And I think that's where the problems with evening journaling come in, because you end up just sitting there replaying things rather than learning from them and going to bed feeling like I'm ready, I've let it all go. And that's what the purpose of evening journaling is. It's to help you wind down, make sense of the day, and be able to go to bed with a clear head. So let's dive into this reflection step. This is, I think, one of the most, let's say, challenging parts, because it's where you really need to dive deeper and start to recognize maybe some things that didn't work and some things that did. So we're going to start off with the first prompt, which you'll notice is a little lighter. And that is going to be, what helped us feel grounded today? Okay, so we have taken this little insight already. This was our prep for this step right here. We know that we had a wonderful morning and we feel like we were able to move through the day at a better, calmer, more productive pace. So what does that teach us? Well, that teaches us that when we set our intentions for today, for the day ahead, before starting work, when we clean off our desk and we feel really clear and ready, that we're going to find, that'll help us to feel more grounded. Yes. Well, today, and specifically, in this example, I did not check my email early enough, so that did not help me feel grounded today. It's really the fact that I was able to have a calming morning that was more peaceful. And this is when you also can ask yourself, what was it that I did in the morning? And maybe you didn't write it down yet that helped you to feel more grounded. So taking a little bit of a deeper look, maybe you didn't write all of it down yet, but it's a good way to start thinking deeper. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that's clear. Yes, okay. So, taking a look at, I felt grounded when I started my day with intention setting. And I want you guys to remember that when you're writing your answers, it's okay if they're not perfect. Like, is this worded 100% perfectly? No. Could I have probably written it differently? Yes. But it doesn't matter because that's not the purpose of this. This is for you to be honest with yourself, dive into what you can learn from today, and really just write for you and not for everyone else. And I think that that's where we often get stuck on journaling is how am I writing this? I need to write it perfectly. You don't, okay? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have grammar issues. Who cares? I set my goals / I'm going to call it priority for the day. And also, one thing I didn't write down was that cleaning off my workspace helped my mind feel more organized. Feel more open is more of the word, because you all know that feeling when you have a clean workspace and so your mind just feels a little calmer and more open to the day ahead. And so this right here is also going to tell us, okay, we felt this is what's going to keep us grounded today. And I want you to note what's interesting about this question, what helped us feel grounded today, is also going to come in handy when we are trying to decide what we want to do tomorrow, because we'll notice different connection points. For instance, what drained my energy? Well, when I checked my email late, is that we can dive into, is there a reason why we did that? Is there, if on a day when I am checking my email early enough, that would have been an answer for what helped me feel grounded today. Okay. Then we're going to move to prompt 2 of this. And that is going to be, what are you proud of yourself for? I like to have a mix of, no matter what style of journaling I'm doing, whether it's the recall, the reflection, I always like to have a positivity mixed into the learning aspect, because I think it's easy if you're focusing on all growth all the time. You tend to start looking more of always, okay, where can I grow? Where can I do better? And I think it is still important to remember that you do that you're still doing the right thing along the way. Like you're still doing wonderful things. Sure, you still want to grow in this area. Sure, maybe you didn't handle that situation perfectly. But I do want to make sure that we're also taking the time to recognize where we are succeeding. And I think that's something that I have always tried to incorporate, especially recently in my journaling, rather than just always focusing on the growth aspect, is to incorporate reasons why I can be proud of myself for where I'm at right now. And I don't think that's something that's often discussed enough, is that balance. Because at some point you do have to take all that introspection work and put it into action. But it's important that as you're doing that to recognize where you are still succeeding. So that was just a little side note that I wanted to make sure I mentioned today. So for example, I am proud of how I handled a difficult conversation. Because you know what was okay, so for example, we're going to connect these two now. What drained my energy or stressful? Well, I had a moment of self-doubt that lingered longer than I wanted to. But then what I was able to do was voice it. So that was a draining moment, but I can also be proud of the fact that I did eventually speak up about it. So you see how you're taking what was stressful and also putting it into a reflection of if you handled it in the way that you would like. And there's a chance that you didn't. That's okay too, but that's not where you would write, what are you proud of yourself for? Also, I'm proud of the work I produced today. Amazing. Now, you can also, when you are doing the reflect, this is when I also would challenge you guys to dive a little deeper into your whys. So, what are you proud of yourself for? I'm proud of myself for speaking up about my self-doubt. I think I can take this even further, and I should have asked myself why. So let's do that now, because I think that's important to separate the recall from the reflect. Because the recall, I just want to make sure everything is clear. Recall is where we really just focused on what happened today. And then the reflect is where we come back to what did it mean to you? So now that we've identified these pieces, what does it all mean? So I'm realizing now that even though I'm always working on myself, I'm still growing each day. The small changes add up. So it's little things like this when you're answering these questions that are going to help level it up. So what helped us feel grounded today? Maybe you took it a little further and you said, why does this help me feel grounded today? And that is how you're also going to, or that's what you're going to learn about yourself over time, is when you want to really level up your journaling is taking it always one step further. The last step in reflect is going to be, because again, what does it all mean to us? Okay, well, does there anything feel unresolved? So I want us to now ask ourselves, what feels unresolved and needs acknowledging. Acknowledging. This can be something that maybe you need to acknowledge about yourself, something that's holding you back, and it can also be a task, specific projects that didn't get done, specific conversations that need to be had to finalize things. You can take this question in whatever direction is going to be best for that night. For example, if there is a lingering task that you didn't finish, let's take this perspective today. So I'm still overthinking a task that isn't complete or a task that I didn't accomplish. I can so these are the lists. Yeah, amazing, Morella. I can go ahead and there's going to be a couple options. So first up, I always upload the recording to the tube if you want to go back. Secondly, I also recommend screenshotting these once we complete a page. Third, after this live, I can go ahead and create a video with the different prompts that you guys can save. So a few different options for you all. Great question. That's what I like these journaling workshops for. This is what it's about. This right here is really that journaling 101 right now for evening time. And throughout the year, throughout next year, we'll continue diving deeper into how we can constantly be leveling up our journaling. Amazing. Thank you guys for letting me know too. That's really helpful. I'm just going to write that down real quick. Okay. Oh no, is your screen still frozen? Let me just keep moving. I just want to make sure it's not. I'm just going to tap the pen so you guys can see if it's frozen. Okay, you're good now. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. Then, amazing. Okay, and I'll keep posting them after. So this is going to say I'm still overthinking a task I didn't finish. Let's see. Then the question becomes, how am I going to acknowledge it? Well, I either need to schedule it tomorrow or decide if it's urgent. That's really the task at hand. How can I acknowledge it? I need to schedule it in for tomorrow. I need to work/complete the task first thing in the morning because that's when I have the most energy. But you see how right there, we're also learning about ourselves. We're learning, oh, you know what? I don't think I realized that maybe I have the most energy right when I wake up, and that's when I should do my hard work first or something that I need to put my full focus in. Again, taking these data points, learning about yourself throughout this process. That is the last step for the second part of this, which is reflect. What did it mean to you? So you're taking these 3 questions and you are taking it one step further by asking it, okay, let's dive a little deeper into the meaning behind it all. The third step is where we are going to reset. So we'll see what we can fit on the rest of this page. We might have to move to a next page. Again, does not matter. For the reset, this is where we see what do we want to release before bed, because this is going to be an evening journaling example. And this is really the final step when it comes to an evening journaling session based off of these examples. Do you use the same questions daily? Great question. The answer is going to be when you are first starting off with your journaling, you want to ask yourself, I think it's important to ask yourself the same prompts for about a week at least. And as you become more comfortable, you'll slowly start to learn what works for you. Because if you are new to journaling, you have to have a starting point. These are the prompts that I would suggest for beginners, especially breaking it up into the 3 parts. Taking what questions work best for you. You can slowly start to adapt things as well over time. But when it comes to what prompts you use, in the beginning, it'll really be prompt focused. Eventually, you will, or you might. Have come to a point where I focus less on the prompts because I've started to have a full system. But this is how I started out. So start with these prompts, see what you like, and see what changes you want to make for tomorrow. Do I create a to-do list from here? Another great question. This in particular, I would not be making a to-do list from. This session today is specifically, yes, I know it's at 11 a.m. Eastern at least, but I wanted to focus on an evening journaling workshop. We did, I think it was last week, a morning journaling workshop, and that is more of where you are focusing your to-do list. We have that uploaded on the tube as well. This one is more for the end of the day when you're trying to unwind and get things out so you can go to bed with a clear mind space. So less about the to-dos, more about putting it on paper because, for example, some things are going to be unresolved at the end of the day. Maybe you didn't finish a task. Well, if it's nighttime, we're going to bed, we don't want to be making a to-do list from this. We want to be seeing, how can I put it on paper so I can kind of let it go until tomorrow? But as we go through this next reset, this is where you'll, I think, get a clear understanding of how you can end your journaling session in a productive manner while staying calm at the nighttime. So for reset, let's start with I'm going to grab that blue crystal pen again. What do I need to release before bed? Oops. This is honestly one of the most, I think, crucial parts of a journaling before bed, but I don't like to start with it because I want it to be a productive question. I don't want it to be a list of just what happened today that went wrong. I want us to try to learn from our day. Absolutely. That's what this is all about, Mirella. And remember, you guys, we do so many of these different types of lives. If there's ever specific things, that's what I like to know, what you guys are looking for as well. So make sure you guys are following us. We have such a great community here. So what do I release before bed? Oh, I'm so excited, Spooky. Oops. Sorry, that was supposed to say, what do I need to release before bed? So I think one thing that happens a lot to all of us is when we go to bed, we still are thinking about the day. Of course. But what do I mean by that in terms of resetting? Well, we've already noted that we feel a little unresolved about that task that we didn't get done. So personally, what happens is I will go down a rabbit hole. That right there is part of what we are trying to release right now. We have to write it down though, so we can start to move forward and go to bed in a productive manner. So writing it down releases it because you're putting it out into the world. So notice that I wrote it in the present tense. It's similar to a positive affirmation where if you put it out into the universe, you're going to start to believe it. That's how I like to look at this question. So I am releasing the pressure of getting everything done right now. But I want to take it one step further and ask myself, how can I do this? Well, I am confident that I did all I could today, or that I did accomplish all that I was able to. The rest, everything will get done, or everything gets done. Today, I did enough. This is where we get to let go of the reflection, take it into account, but also move forward. The next prompt we're going to ask ourselves is, this is where that question about the to-do list comes in a little bit, because I want us to still recognize what does need to be carried forward into tomorrow. The reason why I like to do this is, let me just make sure I write the question correctly. What needs to be carried into tomorrow? Notice I didn't write, what do I need to worry about for tomorrow? No, I just wrote what needs to be carried in tomorrow. That way, we have it written down and we can feel confident that we will remember to focus on this tomorrow, but it's not going to do us any good if we're dwelling on it in this moment. We need to have that peaceful sleep so tomorrow when we get up, we can be our best selves working on whatever it is we're about to write down. So tomorrow, I want to carry in that report that I did not finish. So I did reflect a little bit up here. I wrote, I need to work/complete that task first thing in the morning. I think the brain needs sometimes a reminder that you did set a scheduled time to get it done. So I like to kind of rewrite it again in a productive way. So I'm going to finish my report first thing. That helps you put it out of your brain because you've set aside specific time, and just seeing that once again helps you to feel more confident that you're going to do it. So this one is a little more, you can add as much as you want. You could also carry in, I'm also carrying more of a feeling. So I'm also carrying the mindset of done is better than perfect. And calmness. How do I want to word this more? Just like calmness is productive, or calmness leads to productivity. Now I am going to flip the page, but we're going to continue on with this reset portion. So continuing on, I'm just going to write continued. This will be prompt 3 under the reset category. So reset. Now that we know what we want to carry it for tomorrow, what can we appreciate about today? Some of these, again, you might find them feeling a little repetitive, but I am someone who I like to rewrite things so I can start to really believe them. So for instance, what made you smile or feel grateful? I like that question because it allows you to focus your starting session with that positivity. Reflect what made you feel proud of yourself today. And then as you start to get to the end of your journaling session, I like to come back to that. So you're always ending more on a positive note. So what can I appreciate about today? Well, I'm really proud. And again, notice that it is okay that I'm still saying that word proud, even though that was a question before, because this is still your journal. It's still about how you feel, and it's okay to celebrate your progress. And I think that's something to note. So what can I appreciate about today? Well, I'm appreciative that I was calm in a stressful situation. This is when I would ask myself why. Because now that we're under the reset question, you want to take it as further as you can. I was calm in a stressful situation. Why? Why are you appreciative of this? Well, in the past, I would have been more reactive. / guarded. I see my growth, or I see the change in myself. I appreciate the growth. And I think it's really cool to be able to celebrate something that you did well, because I think it's easier for us to go to the negative. And I don't want that necessarily. Not if that's not the point of the question. And then this is the last step in our journaling session, because I want to take everything that we've learned today, every prompt, just so if you guys did want to screenshot this page right here, I want us all to be able to look back at our answers and say, what is our biggest takeaway in terms of, is there anything I want to do differently tomorrow? That is always the last question I ask myself. And I like to end on this note because it allows me to see how I'm going to take action. Now that we've recognized what's gone well, what we're proud of ourselves for, how we responded, how am I going to go into tomorrow differently? This lets us see how we're going to take everything we've learned and put it into actionable steps. So this is when that point that Spooky had made earlier as well, when she said, oh, well, checking your emails. Yes, this though is when I would write that down. So tomorrow, I'll check my email first thing. So nothing has to wait until later. Also, I really like having that little break after lunch. Just a little bit of quiet time. It didn't have to be anything crazy. It could be 10 minutes. But that's another great opportunity. I also want to implement the post lunch walk for a little reset. And then ask yourself why one more time. Why do you want to do this? What did you notice about yourself in this walk that makes you want to do it again tomorrow? Even though I did say differently, if it's something that you weren't consistent with, like maybe you finally did the walk today after lunch and you're like, oh, you know what? That's not something I normally do. I want to do that tomorrow again too. That's where I want you to also think about this question. So think of this more as, is there anything I just want to do tomorrow in terms of taking a look at what you added today, what differences, things like that, if that's clear. I'm sorry I missed. What are the tabs you have on your journal? Oh, great question. These are the purposeful planning tabs. Let me go ahead and pin those so you guys can see what I'm using. These are these stickers right here, and I actually section off my journal. So into the different categories, there's gratitude, affirmation, quotes, thoughts, ideas, and goals. So I chose the thought tabs for this. These were some of those other sticker sheets as well. But these are the purposeful planning tabs. Absolutely, Shauna. I'm glad it was helpful. And I want to make sure, you guys, if there's any lingering questions, anything that you feel confused or unsure about, that you have the time to ask. I just think it's important to slowly start to learn what works best for you with journaling. And remember, it doesn't have to be this crazy hour-long session every time. You love the idea of using stickers and doodles in the journal. Yes. Okay. Wait, that's cool to know. It's something that you can, it just sometimes makes it fun and different. I think sometimes we focus so much that it's important to add a little creative spunk to it. And I think the most important part to remember is that evening journaling, whatever time of day you're journaling, it's just not about perfection. This is about giving yourself space and time to unwind, understand your day, and also end the night feeling grounded instead of overwhelmed. So I want you guys to try these prompts moving forward and let me know how it goes. Absolutely, Jenna. I'm so glad it's helpful. I love doing these types of workshops with you guys, and I really appreciate letting me know what you are looking for as well in terms of if there's a live you want to see. I really appreciate that. It's very helpful for me to know as well. And yes, this is a different prompted journaling. I'm so glad you guys are liking it. It's nice to break it up into different parts, and I think it helps give clarity on the purpose behind journaling. And over time, you'll learn what prompts you like, what maybe you can condense. And over, I think, a longer period of time, you'll end up doing more free-flowing because you'll feel more confident in your writing abilities and interpreting how you're feeling. And that is what's important, is finding what works best for you, because everyone's style is going to be different. So I like doing these types so we can all try new things, see what works, see what doesn't, and trying new times of day for you for journaling. So thank you guys so much for showing up today, but also for showing up for yourself. It's so important that we are always pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone to try something new, and that is exactly what you did today. So take a moment to recognize that in yourself, because I'm so proud of each and every one of you. And have an amazing day. And as always, keep navigating each day with purpose. Bye, everyone.